friends, insane persons. My name is Kyle, and it's Wednesday, so welcome to another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. Wednesday Whimsy is a short show that I do every Wednesday evening where I talk about a board game topic, a top 10, or whatever else happens to be on my mind. So far, it's all been board games, but or at least something related to them. Anyway, that's what we're doing here. So tonight, I have to confess, I had a bit of a technical difficulty earlier and recorded the whole episode and then realized that something was wrong, and I'm doing it a second time. It's that much fun. Maybe I'll be a little more focused since I've already gone through this once. Today I'm going to be talking about a game that I talked about a little bit on the quarterly countdown because it was new, a game that I played in the first quarter of 2023. But I think it needs its own episode, and that's because it is a big old game, and I want to make sure I can really talk about some things that I enjoy about it. That game is Distilled. Distilled is straight off the Kickstarter press. It arrived last month, I guess, sort of early March, I guess, is when I got my copy. Let's talk a little bit about the game. I'll tell you some things I like, a few things I don't, and anyway, we'll take it from there. So let's start out with what Distilled is about. Well, as you can tell, hopefully from its title, it is about distilling liquor. Strong spirits, not Samuel Farthen's variety. It is about making various, I guess, hard alcohols. I don't drink at all, even though I have a Cosmic Martini hat. I don't have any real experience with alcohol. I do live relatively close, a couple hours from the Jack Daniel's distillery. So I have been there to Lynchburg, Tennessee, and gone through the tour. So I have a little familiarity with it, but I don't really know much about alcohol. That said, I was persuaded to try this game because I heard it was going to be amazing, and because I have no filter for Kickstarter, I jumped in on it there. Anyway, so in the game, what you are doing is you've inherited an old derelict distillery, not the Dead Cells variety, and you are trying to improve it, right? You're trying to make the best liquor and have the most points at the end of the game. You're also trying to make money because you don't have very much at the start and you need it in order to do everything in this game. Money might not be worth points directly, but it is definitely key to keeping the lights on in your distillery. So in the game, let's, I guess, talk about how does it work. And to do so, I'm going to open up the internet and show a picture. I found one good one this time, so I won't have to scroll around looking for them. This is a sleeved version. Unfortunately, the sleeves interfere with the view a little bit, but what you're going to be doing is you have this distillery, and you have you start at the game with what's called a flight. And there we go. And this is the flight. Everyone's going to have the same one, and this is going to explain the different types of liquor that are available to be brewed in the game. So, everyone gets the same one. And so in this game, there's gin and whiskey and rum and soju and baijiu and, a couple others. And it gives you their recipes. So, for example, for whiskey, I would need, first of all, I'd need to unlock the recipe. And then I would need to produce a mixture that has at least 2 grain in it at the end when the mixture is ready. And if I do so, it'll be worth 10 points. Plus, I need to store it in a wooden barrel for at least 1 round. So, and then of course there's different ones, right? There's moonshine and vodka, which are very easy to make. In fact, you're guaranteed to make at least one to make one or the other every round, even if you fail to make something better. And there are going to be different requirements, and you can see they're not allowed to be stored in a bottle. They're not allowed to age in a barrel. Anyway, the game is sort of organized into rounds, 7 rounds. Each round you can brew 1 or 0 liquors. If you're brewing 0, though, you're just not going to, you're out of the game, right? You really need to make sure you do at least 1, and you're pretty much guaranteed to be able to. So that's a nice thing we'll talk about when we get there. But the round starts with a market phase. In the market phase, you take turns buying different things. The things you can buy are the cards from up here. There are improvements for your brewery that give you special abilities. There are premium ingredients, which are the same as regular ingredients. It's just that they're worth extra points, and they have a name on them, which is important for one particular type of liquor. And then there's also these supplies, which could be different kinds of barrels, different kinds of bottles, and some other things that it's mostly barrels and bottles. Then there's also this basic market, and the basic market contains yeast and water, and then basic versions of all three kinds of sugar, and then clay barrels and wood barrels. And you can buy up to 2 things from the market, and you should always buy 2 at least. You should always take your 2. They never hurt you, especially since some of them are free. So you're able to buy up to 2 things from that market, and everything else has to come from up above. You can also unlock the recipes. You'll see if we zoom back in that, for example, if I wanted to make gin, that's a silver recipe, so I would need to buy a silver recipe cube and place it there. It would cost me $4. You do not have to unlock these in any particular order. You could just do one of them for the whole game if you wanted. See how it works. But you can, you always have the ability to unlock as many as you can pay for. And after everyone's kind of taken your turn and passed, then you move on to the next phase. And the next phase is sort of the heart of the game. So in order to make a liquor, you need to provide 1 water, at least 1 yeast, and at least 1 sugar of some type. There are 3 types of sugars. There are grain sugars, fruit sugars, and then generic plant sugars, which is, I guess, reeds and stems and stuff. So like sugar cane or something. So you're going to need to provide at least 1 of those. You'll see that the recipes sometimes require more than 1. For example, this baijiu requires 3 grain, so I'd need to come up with at least 3 grain if I was going to try to make baijiu. But I don't have to decide what I'm making just yet. You're going to put your grains. There's these spots here for them in this wash bag, but basically you need to make sure you don't have to put them there. You've got 1 yeast at least, 1 water at least, and then any number of grains, well, any number of anything, but at least 1 grain. Then for every grain you have put in, you're going to get 1 of these alcohol cards. Alcohol it has a couple of purposes. It gives you $1 if it's in the recipe at the end. It's a wild if you happen to keep it from round to round. It can be either a grain or a water. And then also it pads your deck, because the next feature, which is kind of the core of the game, you're going to take all of the cards that are in your mixture, the alcohol, the sugars, the yeast, and the water. You're going to put them face down, shuffle them all up, and get rid of 2 of them. Now, the rules say to take 1 off the top and 1 off the bottom, and that has something to do with the thematic process of distilling. I mean, I do it that way because that's what the rules say, but you could just discard any 2. But you're going to discard them not out of the game. You're going to put them back into your brewery to use again on another round. So you've not wasted them. They just kind of sit around, and you can kind of keep using them as long as they keep coming back. And then after you have discarded those 2 cards, you're going to look at what remains in your mixture. And that's why I mentioned, the different recipes. For example, at this point, if I were trying to make the baijiu, I would have to have 3 grains. If for some reason I didn't still have 3 grains, if I only had 3 in the mixture and 1 of them got discarded, for example, it's not going to be a baijiu. It's going to be something else. In this case, it could be whiskey, as long as I met the requirements for whiskey. It could be soju, or, worst case, it could be vodka or moonshine, depending on what kinds of sugars it has in it. You're then going to supply a barrel. The barrel is going to be, you've got a steel one you can use just every round. Some require that. And then there are the wooden and clay ones. And those are going to be used if you're going to age it. And then if it needs to be aged, you're going to put it into your cellar and do nothing else with it for a round at least, except age it, which we'll talk about in a moment. And if it is a non-aging spirit, well, then you'll proceed to your sale phase. You can always sell. Anyway, so you're going to go into sell. And in sell, players are going to go in turn order and sell a liquor. So for example, I don't know why I have the hiccups. I'm sorry. If I had a vodka here, I would be getting 2 points and 1 coin. Plus, every card that was in my mixture will have a number of points or coins on it. For example, water, you'll see, is worth 1 coin. Alcohol is worth a coin. And some of the premium ingredients are worth points or additional coins or whatever they might be. You must also supply a bottle. You have one basic bottle you can use every round, but if you have a premium bottle, you'll want to use it because that's going to be how you get. You can. The bottles are a weird set collection. I need to drink something. I apologize. The bottles are a weird set collection mechanism at the end of the game. Anyway, when you do that, you move on to the next round. You also get, if there's a label still available for the liquor, you get to take it and put it onto one of these special ability spots and get the bonus that it gives you. It's going to be some premium item or ingredient or upgrade from the market for free. It could be your special ingredient. It could just be some points. You've always got a choice of what you want to do. You can only do each one once. And obviously, with only 7 rounds, and 1 per round, you can only do 7 in the game. Anyway, you're going to proceed to the new round at that point. After 7 rounds, the game is over, and you tally up your points. Your points, most of them were scored during the game, but you're also going to get some. There's some weird set collection for bottles, as I mentioned. You're going to see if you have ones from different regions or ones from the same region, and get points based upon a table. One thing I didn't mention is aging. So many of the liquors need to be aged, and you're going to put them into your cellar. And each round, you're going to draw a card from this flavor deck that's kind of off screen. And you're not going to look at it. You're just going to stick it face down in there. And you're going to look at this table when you score it. And based upon the number of flavor cards that are in there, that's normally 1 per round. So, for example, if it had been aged if it had 5 flavor cards, which normally means 5 rounds of aging, it's worth 15 extra points. You flip the cards over then and see what it tastes like. And I am sorry about the hiccups here. I guess I've been drinking. You're going to look at the cards and they'll tell you what it tastes like. That doesn't have any gameplay value, except the cards are worth 0 to 3 coins, depending on how tasty it is. And that's kind of funny, right? I mean, there's one that's like old tires, and there's one that's, fish smell or whatever it happens to be. You're going to it kind of adds, you can say, oh, look, it tastes like tobacco and coffee and old rubber or whatever it might be. That's kind of a fun thing. Anyway, at that point, you're going to total up your score, and whoever has the most points wins. There are also some goals you can score, and you have your individual hand of goals as well, and that's how you get a few bonus points. And that's largely it. One other thing I didn't mention before I go into what I love and didn't love is that each player has a character that gives you a special power. That character will relate to one of the alcohols that's in the game, at least in some way interact with it. That's part of the setup. And your character also has a special ingredient that's just for you and a special recipe. The special recipe will require a specific named ingredient. For example, you're making a special kind of rum and it requires sugar cane. Well, there might be sugar cane in the market, and that can count, but you have this special ingredient you can get. You can unlock it with one of these bonuses, and it will always work. It will count for that as well. So you're able to make sure you can get it. Your special liquor can be brewed only once, but it's usually worth a lot of points and a lot of money if you do, especially because your special ingredient, if it's in there, gives you extra bonuses as well. Anyway, let's move on before we get too long-winded here and talk about what makes the game special. So the game has a lot that's pretty special about it. First of all, amazing production. The cards are well illustrated. The artwork is good. The components, these boards with the recessed layers, everything top notch. Mine has metal coins and cubes. Although you could use I think the base version came with cardboard and wooden cubes. That doesn't matter. But everything really looks nice. The cardboard's nice and thick, and it looks like a well-made game. It has these nice trays for storing these little labels, which would have been a major hassle if you had to sort them out in little bags or something. Everything's a good production, high quality, no complaints there, top notch. Second, the theme. Now, I mentioned earlier I don't drink, despite all those hiccups you heard. Um, I don't drink at all, never have, don't know much about history or biology, but especially not alcohol. Um, and I really like this game. I really think that the theme is one that we don't see in a lot of games. There's a lot of wine games and a couple of beer games. This is the only, from what I know, off the top of my head, distilled hard liquor game. But the rule book is really nice because it will go through and tell you about these drinks. So even if you don't know what they are, you can learn a little bit about it. And I think that's great. It's a theme that is brought to life by its mechanisms. And I think it shines even for people who don't have a lot of familiarity with alcohol. I also really like the game's mechanisms. On one hand, it's a tight sort of Euro turn points into or resources into points game, but there's this really interesting push your luck element in there. This little bit of chance that keeps the thing working. Just it keeps it from feeling like everything else, right? You've got this choice. Do I make a liquor? I'm trying to make this liquor, this one right here. Am I going to put in just what I need and hope I get lucky, or am I going to put in extra things? Am I going to try and fill it up with alcohol? Am I going to try and make sure put 5 grain in? If it needs 3 and I put in 5, I'm only taking out 2 cards, so I'm guaranteed to have the 3 in that I need. But that means I've invested a lot in buying this grain, and once I use it, it goes away. I mean, somebody drank it. So, there's it's a calculated risk, and you can get lucky and you can get unlucky. But even if you're unlucky, even if, you ended up with something that just doesn't work for any of the recipes you've unlocked, you're guaranteed to be able to make either the moonshine or the vodka, which means that you get the influx of cash the round, and, you can probably still get one of those label bonuses depending on how much, when you are in the game. So you're never really spanked for being unlucky, but you're encouraged to make interesting choices. And I think that that's just a mechanism I don't see in a lot of games like this, but it kind of spices things up. It makes it more spirited. So those are some things I really like. The rules are pretty easy, and it's not too complicated, although, it may take a round or two to sort of see how all the things work together. But it's not a long game by any means. Almost all of it is simultaneous, which is fantastic. It means that it's going to be, you never really feel bored or feel like you're waiting around. So lots to love here. Let's talk about the one thing I don't like. And the but here is the setup. I don't like that because it's that flight system. Because when you give everybody, you say we're going to use flight C, and then you have to flip to the back of the rule book, and there it will say for flight C you need to use the following characters, and then you've got to kind of go through and sort through all the characters. And it's not like use all the North American and all of the African characters of the expansion. No, it's like use just a couple from this continent, a couple from that one. And so there's really no way to store them so that it'll be easy to set up. It just, it's a really clunky piece of the setup in an otherwise very elegant game. And I don't like that. I wish I could just use everybody. And I think there are rules for doing that, but they say that it might affect the balance, right? If you get somebody who only works well with European liquors and you don't have any in your game, well, I mean, that's kind of useless. You might as well take it out. But, it ends up just it drags the setup to a halt, which is kind of funny because, at that point, usually I'm doing that myself. So only I will have this problem. Anyway, other than that, I don't really have a lot negative to say about the game. I think it's a pretty good one. So what's my final rating? Well, my final rating is going to be a 9 out of 10. I think this is a game that almost everyone will enjoy. The only people who might not is if you are, really averse to the theme of alcohol, this, and that's going to be a problem for you. Then might not be for you. I mean, for me, I don't drink, but I also don't pray to Cthulhu or trade cloth for bricks or do any of the things that I do in games in real life. And I can still have fun and kind of play along. It is, after all, a game. But if you like alcohol, I think the theme might bring you in. So there's that. But I think this will work for a lot of people. It looks good. It's good value. There's a solo version, which is okay. But it's fine. It's a good way to learn the mechanisms. It's a little unforgiving, but it's a good solo. It's just, I think it'll work for a lot of people. I think this one will be a big success. I think it's one that will be on many people's top of the year list, perhaps. It just really hits in all the right places. And so for me, it's a 9 out of 10. And with that, we have come to the end of another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. And that's kind of it. I've rambled on for about as long as I did the first time. I'm going to make sure I hit end this time. Anyway, I'll be back again soon for another episode and another topic. We will see what that is. And until then, I'm going to wish you safe travels and courage when you need it. And I hope to see you back again soon on another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. Bye-bye.